That's great. Thank you very much. That girl lawyer, it's that girl engineer. When I first started at Massport, I was called Kathy. Kathy has never been my name. It took me a while to figure out it was because the only other two professional women were both named Kathy. So, go figure. Last question for Pam, and then we'll open it up for a couple of questions from the audience. Pam, can you trace your current achievements back to any specific direction or decision or series of decisions that you made, and why do you think they were so significant, and what might have happened if you'd chosen differently?
Thanks. I wanted to add just a little bit about the barriers. Sometimes I think the worst barriers are those we put on ourselves. And for example, when I became an assistant division administrator, many people came up to me and said, how can you be that? Because you're not an engineer. And I didn't realize being an engineer required, you had to be an engineer to be a leader. And it just never occurred to me that I was prohibited from even applying. So, if we think about ourselves, we have to be, as everyone has been saying, really be open. There should be no barriers to what you can do. As far as those decisions, I thought that was also a great question, just because it makes us sit back and really think back, get some retrospection on where we are. We're so busy moving forward, sometimes it's good to look at how we got there. And I came back and I thought, there's really three sort of what I see are real turning points, at least on a professional level. And the first one I think is pretty obvious. I had been accepted into a graduate program. I was going on for my PhD. I had a teaching assistantship. And at the same time, an offer came in to be working with the State Historic Preservation Office, which are very rare jobs. And so I took it. I was 30. I had student loans. I never really had a real job, a real one. And I thought, well, this is great. I can always go back and be a PhD, and go into academia and become a teacher and professor. And, obviously I haven't. So it was a huge change in my career path. And the second one is really 2 times within Federal Highway. And both times I was asked to take on a really high-profile initiative, one that had, in one time, the secretaries, well, both of them had the secretary's attention. And each time I sat back and I thought, I really don't want to do this. In fact, I went home and cried. I really did not want to do them. And partly because it wasn't that I didn't think I could, but because I knew what kind of personal sacrifice it was going to take for me. And there was just no margin for error. You had to be that home run, out of the park kind of job. And in fact, one of them I actually went back and said, I'm not the right person. You need to find someone else, someone who's 3 grades higher than me. Why me? And I was told I wasn't an option. It was presented as a question, but it really wasn't. So I took it, and I have to say, in both cases, they were probably the best things that I ever could have done. The people I met, the experiences I had, the learning, the problem solving, they were incredible experiences. So this moral of that story is that, as part of the theme, if something comes to you and you're asked to do something, just say yes, and then go swing for the fences, because that's the way to do it. And finally, the thing that really made a big difference and a turning point in my career was after my that last assignment, I was given an opportunity to take a year-long leadership program, and it was an executive leadership program. And my agency, Federal Highway, was great. They just said, go away. Don't think about, you're dispensable, go away. We'll do something without you. And for me, everyone has these opportunities. It's all about what we take and make of them. And so for me, it was really a year of kind of finding out about myself and learning about my leadership style, or did I even have a leadership style, and what did I want to do. It was really thinking about my life and my career, because at that point I probably would have been the best technical or program specialist in headquarters. And coming away from that, I thought, I do want to be a leader in this agency, and that led me to start apply for the assistant division administration job, and then also DA. So it was a huge turning point in my life. So you almost have to, Mary Beth talked about emotional intelligence, and we've talked about knowing yourself. You have to know yourself and know what you want and go from there.
Can I add one quick thing to piggyback on that? I think it's extremely important at the end of each day or some regular time that you stop and do that introspective thing. How did I handle that meeting today? How did I handle that? When so-and-so spoke up and was so upset, how did I respond? And was I good? And if so, great. And if not, figure out what I should have done differently, what I could have done better. So I think that introspection piece is extremely valuable to help us to become a better leader the next day.
Great comment. We have time for a couple of questions from the audience. Any burning thoughts? Because if not, I know these four folks can continue to talk to each other very happily. Yes.
Hi. One of the things I think that leads to success in life is failure, something I've done a few times. I was wondering if any of you could speak to failures you remember that were particularly helpful or constructive in terms of what you were able to learn. Did anyone hear that?
I've failed. And I was here at the Volpe Center, and it was not going well, and I was with my boss who's here supporting me today, and I'm just a mess in his office saying, this isn't working, nothing's working here, I'm doing such a terrible job, I had just lost a huge project I had, and I was just so miserable, and he said, jobs are not linear. Your career path is not linear. It is not just this great ascension to the top that you expect it to be. It'll be bumpy, and it'll be bad, and it'll be good. But I wanted it to be linear because that's what's straight, and that's what engineers do, and that's what made sense to me. But out of my failure, basically here is how I got wound up in the position I'm at, which I'm very happy with. So.
I'll take that one on too. Thanks for sharing that, Michelle. As I suggested earlier, I thought I was on that straight trajectory to the top at the Port Authority. I'd been the first woman port director. I was the first chairman, and suddenly I was out of a job. And it wasn't anything that I'd done, but nonetheless, a job I loved was no longer my job. And it was a very painful experience. And what I realized after I'd sort of lived with the pain for a while was I had this network of people around Boston and around the country, and every single person I picked up the phone to, because you used telephones in those days, took my call immediately, responded with suggestions. It was the most amazing experience. Some of those folks are here today. And, had I not had the painful experience, I also wouldn't have had the positive experience. So,
well, I'll say something. I don't know if I've had failures. Maybe I just don't see them that way. I've had certainly some disappointments, but in retrospect, they've all turned out to be the right things. They were probably the wrong places I needed to be, or I wanted them for the wrong reasons. And it seems like, as they say, the door closes and another one opens. That's even better. So maybe that's that optimism that Mary Beth spoke about, but I really never saw it as failures.
I had a horrible failure when I first started my career in FTA, and all of you who work with FTA, we have these very strict new starts rules, and you have to follow them very carefully. And I released something, and I can't quite remember. It was for a major project in Boston, and I wasn't supposed to release it, and I happened to be going down to Washington the next week for a meeting, and the people who were supposed to release it, because it was supposed to go to our headquarters office, practically, grabbed me in the hallway, and it was the worst experience of my life. First of all, I was really young, and these people were so angry, rightfully so, and I'd made a mistake, and, they accused me of really just trying to help the partner and, not thinking this through. And I basically learned, number one, how to apologize with grace. Number two, to the forbearance thing that I talked about, making sure you're very careful, reaching out when you make a decision and do things to make sure you do it correctly. But I think, the whole emotional intelligence piece, it was the first time I realized that you can get through very difficult conversations with other people when they're really angry and you're in big trouble, and you can do it in a way that your career isn't going to end. And, as long as you understand what you did and learn from it, you can move on. And that was at a very young age, that was a big learning experience for me.
Any other questions? Yes, Francis.
My name's Francis Fisher. I'm in the Transportation Planning Division. And I guess I was just curious, when you're trying to fill a position or have a special project,
Francis,
when you're trying to fill a position or a special project, what characteristics are you looking for kind of that makes this particular candidate stand out to you?
I'm going to be filling 2 positions in the near future, so...
Wait a minute, this is not a recruitment opportunity.
One in planning and one in environment, just by the way. One of the things that... you know what they say, that you can do training, but you can't train for attitude. And attitude, it is huge. You want someone that is a positive thinker. You want someone who is creative and just comes in with an enthusiasm for the job and a competence. So I can supplement in the training department, but I can't change attitudes and just perspective. So to me, it's looking for the right fit.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I really look for those core qualities too, and I have a staff person sitting in the back, Joanne Weinstock, who exhibits all those qualities. It's really, being very hardworking, but also having a really good sense of yourself and wanting to help others and wanting to learn. And it's not so much where you went to school and what your degree is in as what you've done with it and how you project yourself and whether you're transparent and a good communicator. So it's all those kind of softer core things that, in my mind, really sustain someone for the long term and make them a great employee.
I would agree with that. I think that you wouldn't get the interview if you didn't have the competence shown already. So the interview really is, from my perspective, an opportunity to find out if this person has the things that were just mentioned, and is someone who can work with a team. Is this somebody who can work with just the office team or on a specific assignment team, whatever it is? Is this a person you want to spend so much time of your day with?
One of the things that has stood out to me, I've only been in a position where I've been interviewing candidates for the last year and a half, but a lot of times what sets someone apart is that they listen to the question that you ask and they answer that question. A lot of times we go through it, and question after question, they are just talking about themselves. They have not listened to what I'm trying to get at in my very well thought out interview list of questions. So that's one of mine.
Great. Well, any closing comments any of you would like to make before we wrap this up?
Did you ask us to sum up in one sentence what
Was I supposed to do
advice
that?
we'd give?
Oh, my goodness, yes. In one sentence, what is your parting advice to the audience? As you can tell, this is a very well-prepared panel by Gina.
I have to use 2 sentences. Forgive me. And they're short. They're very short. Believe in yourself. It's lonely at the top.
Mine is, and some of you may have heard this before, but certainly in my office you have, take your responsibilities in your job very, very seriously, but not yourself.
And I would say continuously invest in yourself.
I'll steal from Ann Aylward. Have a thick skin, and also make sure you have, say, a 40-year career. You don't have a 5-year career over and over and over again.
That's amazing, because Michelle just said what I actually have become known around the Volpe Center for saying, which is you do have a 40-year career, so you don't have to do everything in the first 5 years that you're in a job.